Everything all right down there, buddy? You sure everything's okay? You don't seem okay.
No, everything's not okay. We gave up a touchdown a game after we scored a touchdown ourselves.
Yes, I know we gave up a touchdown, but it's just the preseason. Everything's gonna be okay. At least I think they are. Well, that was fun. You know, ignore the dramatic versions of me. That's the normal Knights fan me, not the thoughts of the Knight fan me. And so now now that I've got my emotions out, get down to the business of unpacking what was probably one of the worst preseason games I've seen in the last 6 years, with the final score of San Jose Sharks 7, Golden Knights 3. Now, starting from the starting lineup for the Golden Knights, this game looked like it had potential to be good, with the opening starting lineup being Marchessault, Stevenson, Stone, Eichel, Smith, Kessel, Cotter, Dean, Ronbjerg, Lecision, Waugh, Dorofeev, with Martinez and Pietrangelo, Chayka and Theodore, and McNabb and Korzak. And in net was a really interesting matchup. Adin Hill going up against his old team and his old partner in James Reimer. Now, I initially wrote in brackets before this game even started that this was a revenge game for Adin Hill, but as I just said, the scoreline made it look like a revenge game in the other direction. But anyway, the optimism was up. It was another game in the Fortress, the 4th preseason tune-up game for the Golden Knights, and all that was left to do is drop the puck. And thank heavens that I really didn't get to watch the first little bit of it, as I wasn't able to watch the game on my TV. So I picked it up middle of the first period, and by the time I turned the TV on, it was already 1-0 San Jose Sharks. I had to go back and see what happened here, and oddly enough, the guy who opened the scoring is a guy who last year made about $1.1 million per goal in Erik Karlsson. It was really a rough turnover by Pietrangelo. It was really uncharacteristic of him, and he got slightly outworked to give up the first hole, and it was one of those ones where there was really nothing Hill could do about it. It was not the start that the Golden Knights were looking for, especially with that being 6 minutes into the game. So it was just a shaky start for the Knights, and unfortunately that would kind of become a theme of the night, with that first goal stat line reading Karlsson from Meyer and Hertl, who are 2 of my least favorite forwards in the entire Pacific Division, at 6:26 of the first period. Fortunately, the Golden Knights would get the opportunity to answer back a few minutes later, with Lorenz taking a hooking penalty at 10:31. The Golden Knights were able to manage a couple of shots on this power play, but none of them really tested James Reimer. Smith came awfully close to doing something on the power play, but he wasn't really able to land a clean shot. And that kind of was the theme of the early first period, especially when I started watching around the 10-minute mark. Probably this power play was the first thing I was actually able to watch live. So here I was thinking that the game was about to trend in the right direction. And from the time I turned the game on until the end of this first period, you could really sense the Golden Knights' pressure was building, which is optimistic as a fan. Riley Smith did another thing, came really close to springing Kessel in all alone on a breakaway. The pass was just a little bit too hard and a little bit too wide coming out of the neutral zone, with about 5 minutes to go in the period. Fortunately, us fans wouldn't have to wait much longer to get out of our chairs and jump around, as Jack Eichel himself would put the Golden Knights put the Golden Knights back into the game, tying the game 1-1. A really good pass from Shea Theodore in the neutral zone to Kessel. And Eichel just blew past the defenders, and it wasn't even close. Kessel fired it right under the catching glove of Reimer at 18:30 of the first period, reading Eichel from Kessel and Theodore. Good goal, really good goal. Really happy to see it. Really glad that the Knights were able to get the equalizer towards the end of the first period. And it was, going into the intermission, I figured that would be the last bit of action that there was. That was until Kaden Korzak and Pavel Dorofeev combined for a really solid chance if they hadn't been standing in the same spot. This was in the last 30 seconds of the period, but the pressure from the Golden Knights really ramped up over the course of the back half of that first period, especially after giving up that first goal, and particularly when I turned on the TV. So I'm not going to say it's my fault that we had a good end of the first period, but I can't really say anything else. Really, we were getting beat in every stat that matters. We were down in shots 11-9. We were only 42% from the faceoff dot, and we were getting out hit by a tally of 9-5. The play defensively in particular was kind of sloppy. This is really the first sloppy defensive period we've had in the Bruce Cassidy era, especially in this preseason. And Aiden Hill did a really good job of keeping the game 1-1, as he was kind of under siege there for part of the first period. And as I said in the last time these guys played together, Eichel and Kessel are showing some serious chemistry. And if I was George McPhee, Kelly McCrimmon, and Bruce Cassidy, I'd be paying very close attention to what they do for the remainder of this game, because that might be your opening night's first line in a couple of days. And now we get into the second period. And if you watched this game, you know what's coming, because this was not a fun period to be a Golden Knights fan. We really kicked off this period with a bang. Great chance at the start as Marchessault set up Chayka in the low slot on the left circle, and he just wasn't quite able to get there. Wasn't quite able to sink the puck past Reimer. The game was a lot of neutral zone hockey at this point. That was until Pavel Dorofeyev took a hooking penalty at 4:32 of the first period. And this is really when the game kind of got away from the Golden Knights. The PK was looking really, really, really solid in the first 3 quarters of this penalty kill, being it's the first penalty kill of the game. That was until the Sharks were able to capitalize on a bit of a defensive breakdown high in the defensive zone, which allowed for the center of the ice to open up, and Daniil Gushchin was able to capitalize on a cross-crease pass from Tomas Hertl to put the Sharks up 2-1. It wasn't great. It was just a poor, sloppy defensive moment. And now one would consider that these are great coaches and great players. They'd be able to bounce back from a defensive mistake. And it wasn't a minute later that Matt Benning put the Sharks up 3-1 on another horrific defensive breakdown of almost the exact same style, form, and function of the first one that put the Sharks up 2-1. It was just a bad turnover. Dean got outworked in the corner, led the puck out to the middle of the ice, and Benning was able to score at 8:59 from Timo Meier. Now it's been a little bit. We've got a few minutes. We can breathe. It's okay. And they scored again. Sharks from Johan Gadjevich score to make it 4-1 Sharks. Yet another absolutely horrific turnover in front of Aiden Hill. He basically won a 1-on-3 against 3 Knights defensemen and put it home over Hill's glove from a knee at 9:56 of the second period. So that was a little bit ugly. It wasn't just a little bit ugly, it was a lot of bit ugly, as it was a bad stretch of about 6 minutes for the Golden Knights, and not too dissimilar to how last season went. Any mistake that we made wound up in the back of the net, so really this was just the 2021-22 season Golden Knights coming back to bite us a little bit in the end. So now we have the opportunity to right the ship. A few minutes after the Gadjevich goal, Harrington takes a tripping penalty to put the Golden Knights on their second power play of the game. But he did so breaking up a great chance on Pavel Dorofeyev, who was going to go in all alone, but he got his legs taken out, and hence the power play. And the Golden Knights looked really good on this power play of the period. They had great pressure the vast majority of the power play. Both lines looked really solid, whether it being the first pair with Stevenson and Marchessault, whether it be the main scoring line with Eichel, Kessel, and Smith. They all looked really solid, and really it was the most solid whenever the Golden Knights were able to finally capitalize on one of these power plays, with Riley Smith going shelf on a cross-crease feed from Stone to make the game 4-2. That was really, really exciting. It means the momentum really kind of flipped around there, as the Golden Knights were able to hopefully be able to build from it. Smith from Stone and Eichel at 13:34. Right after we scored, basically, Stevenson and Pietrangelo had a really good opportunity on a partial 3-on-1 that they weren't really able to do anything with. And any and all indicators and anybody watching the game had to feel that the Golden Knights were building momentum. Okay, we're inside 2. We have a good opportunity to come back. Next goal is really important. We want to get one, make it 4-3 by the intermission, make them think. And I can only assume that in that mentality of trying to push for that goal to cut the lead in half, it led to the defensive mistake as Daniil Gushchin scored again to make it 5-2. at 15:41 of the second period. And I feel like I'm a broken record. It was another absolutely horrific defensive breakdown at our own blue line that allowed the Sharks to be able to continue an extended offensive zone time and ultimately score. It just wasn't really able to do anything. And the rest of the period kind of played out the same way that the early part of the second period played out, where the Knights were like doing stuff, but they weren't doing stuff per se. They were doing a lot of offensive zone time, but they weren't actually getting any high quality chances or scoring opportunities. The top two lines put up serious resistance. Stone looks really good in his return. Eichel, Kessel, and Smith is still being a standout line, but none of them were able to put one in the back of the net. And so at the end of the second period, I just am kind of left shaking my head. It was just ugly defense the whole time. There's no need to look at the stats, as the score can speak for itself. We were still getting manhandled in every facet of the game. And yet what's crazy is that over the last 10 minutes of that period, we were outshooting the Sharks 10-1. Probably because of the late surge, 5 minutes to go in the period and into the horn. But that goal from Daniil Gushchin was the only shot they had in the last 10 minutes of the second period, and it was the only one that went in. So I don't know what to take away from that, other than it was just a really, really, really shaky period from the Golden Knights. And while it's not impossible to come back from down 3, I've seen them do it before. It's the preseason, and as long as they're able to keep the defense going, anything can happen. But it's just been a shaky game to this point. And it didn't take long as a fan to see that the Golden Knights were going to come out and mean business in the third period. It was essentially the first offensive zone rush of the third period when Eichel decided to say, you know what, I'm going to go, try and win this game myself. As he took a pass from Phil Kessel coming down the right wing, as he just blew by the two defenders that were supposed to be covering him and essentially just had a tap in, wide open net. The cool thing about this play was that it just was so natural. Eichel knew exactly where to go, Kessel knew exactly where to put the puck, and there was nothing Reimer could do. And so if we can see a lot more of that, especially in the regular season, that line is going to put up some serious points, because they made it look effortless on that play. And I know it's the Sharks, and I know that the Knights are supposed to be, the manhandlers of the Sharks. But again, it's the preseason, so matchups are odd. And yet they're still able to make these high-quality mid-season superstar plays, and they've only played together twice. So that bodes really, really well for the line combination that Bruce Cassidy thought up, I'm convinced, in a dream before this preseason started. So that makes the game 5-3. And again, the Golden Knights are looking for that next goal. They're looking for the one to put them back within one. And then at that point, it's anyone's game. And that's kind of how the middle of the period looked. There wasn't really a lot going on. But, it just was going, and it was going, and it was going until there was a bit of a defensive breakdown. Again, I'm a broken record. And Daniil Gushchin was able to complete the hat trick and put the Sharks up 6-3. It was just a bad turnover. Kessel lost an edge. It was sloppy, and there's really nothing anyone could do about it. It's shaky. You can see why my alternate personality me was crying in the corner, because it was not a pleasant game. So at this point, it's 6-3. And so, yeah. So they've already put up the touchdown. The Sharks are just looking for the extra point at this point. The Golden Knights were making it interesting. They were able to draw a penalty with about the 5:44 mark. But they weren't able to muster anything on the power play. I don't even think they got a shot. They were just kind of out of it. That sixth goal really took the wind out of their sails, and it really kind of hurt their opportunity to do anything else in that game. We went on to our second penalty kill when Jake Leschyshyn got caught for holding the stick at 10:48. And it was on this power play for the Sharks that basically a play that sums up the entire preseason for me occurred. The preseason's where you see some of the strangest things, just the darndest things happen in the preseason that nobody will remember come the middle of October, whenever the regular season starts. But I know I will, because this one was, if it had been a close game, I'd have been furious. But because the Knights were going to lose this game already, I can just sit back and laugh. Luke Cunnin gets to score arguably the most forgettable and forgivable goal in Aiden Hill's career to put the Sharks up 7-3. It was just a point shot that bounced off the back glass and then kicked off of basically hit the back glass, flipped up in the air, hit Aiden Hill in the back, and rolled down his pant, basically off his butt and into the goal. It's funny. It's sad. Like, you can't blame the goalie. It goes against his stat line, but you can't. I'm sure nobody in the organization is going to hold it against him. It was a messy game for all involved, and that just kind of epitomizes what this game was for the Golden Knights. One of the things that I found kind of funny is that after this, tensions really boiled over. Lecision got into a fight, which I never thought I would ever say, and then he proceeded to lose the fight, which is the least surprising thing I've said so far. He did get a couple of good punches in, and the only reason he lost was because he lost his balance. So it was just a little bit of fire from the young player. So Lecision and Benning both got 5-minute majors for fighting at 12:50, and that was really the last thing of note to happen in the game. It was just a lot of neutral zone hockey, a lot of playing for pride, playing for position. I'm sure we had a couple of good scoring opportunities that just weren't landing, but it really just spent the majority of the game in the neutral zone, and finished it out with the final score of 7-3 Sharks. So trying to break down this game overall is really hard because through the first 3 games of the preseason, there's been a lot of positive things despite being a lot of losses. There's been a lot of positive takeaways, whether it be rookies doing outstanding performances in the form of Paul Cotter or Logan Thompson's goaltending, or whether it be new faces showing good chemistry being with the Eichel-Kessel-Smith line. That being said, there's basically nothing positive you can take away from this game other than it's exactly how not to play defense under Bruce Cassidy. The defense looked horrific. Like, a lot of turnovers, a lot of sloppy play, just a lot of absent-minded, messy hockey. And that's going to happen. It's the preseason. There's not a lot of chemistry going around. There's still a lot of non-NHL players in the lineup. And I'm sure as we move closer to the start of the regular season, when we get to, preseason games 6 and 7, the roster will start to look a lot more of what it's going to look like in LA on October 11th. That being said, it's just one of those moments that makes you kind of concerned as a fan. This hasn't been the most successful preseason through 4 games, but it hasn't been a complete and utter waste like this game was. And now I know there's a lot of shouting from the rooftop, oh, Aiden Hill is just, he's having a rough, it wasn't a good game. This is how he should be. There's a reason the Sharks didn't want him. That's not where my head's at. I am concerned at the way that he played goal in this game, but there were a lot of opportunities that the defenders had to back him up and prevent plays from happening that just weren't done. And so I'm going to, obviously, like every fan, I'm going to file this game away in the back of my head. And obviously it is, score 1 for Logan Thompson in the starting goaltender battle, especially with the fact that Michael Hutchinson was sent down. It means that the management group is thinking kind of along the lines that I am right now, in that bad games happen, especially in the preseason, from good goalies. And so this probably isn't the rule. It's probably the exception for Aiden Hill, as his numbers do not in any way indicate that this is the kind of game that he has on a regular basis. So we'll just take it as a fluke and we'll move on from there. The only sort of positive we can take away from it, as I've reiterated numerous times before, is that the Eichel line is still really solid. Eichel and Kessel clearly are getting along well. I'm almost starting to believe that they're friends, because the amount of chemistry they've had, the amount of good passing, and just the amount of offensive and defensive responsibility from all the players. And, Riley Smith is there too, who's, not a pushover of a hockey player either. That line's got a lot of potential, and I would not be surprised if that's our opening night, first minute of the season line. So now we're on to the next preseason game, which is on Tuesday. I believe it's against the Arizona Coyotes. I apologize for this video being a little bit late. I've had some connectivity issues, so I haven't really been able to upload anything. And so odds are there won't be another 2-3 day break between end of game and recap. Now, I know I'm sure a couple of you are thinking, oh, he's only going to talk about the wins. Well, I just talked about a 7-3 blowout loss, so that should put that fear to bed. I'm going to be on top of it the whole season, unbiased, and maybe a couple of extra skits along the way, especially if things go particularly positive or incredibly sideways throughout the regular season. So that being said, thanks for watching. If you like this video, I've got a bunch of them like it, and that list will continue to grow with every passing game. If you like what you see, subscribe, like, comment down below, do all the things, hit all the buttons. I greatly appreciate it, and I will catch you guys in the next one.